Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. Today, we're mentally packing our bags to talk beers abroad. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. Now, if that intro sounded a little bit strange, dear listeners, it's because it was the second time that we'd recorded it because Tori couldn't decide what she was going to say as her hello.
I just thought I didn't want to say hello, so I said hola. But then it took a minute, and then Joe thought I was lagging, and I wasn't lagging. I just said it.
Dear.
What I wanted to say was like bon voyage, I think was what I wanted to say. And then I was like, but that's also like not hi. So my brain went with hola. And I think it got you completely wrong.
And it kind of came out like a question.
So, hola?
So if you haven't guessed, we are talking about beers in other countries when we visit other countries. How do we plan our beery adventures?
And where to go, really?
Where to go, yeah.
Like we this year have been very fortunate to go to at least one other place so far. If not,
I didn't think I was going to.
I had goals, and I was like, I don't know how many I'm actually about to hit off. And at least I've checked sort of one. Like I've checked somewhere new off the list, and I will hopefully be having more, because while we're mentally packing our bags, I probably should be physically packing my bags, as I'm due to fly to another country soon, as are you. But I guess yours is a little bit, you're not flying to another country, you are training to another country.
Oh yeah,
and it's still within the UK. So
we're talking about Edinburgh.
Like it's cheating.
So that doesn't really count.
Like I am going abroad to Scotland.
I mean, technically, yeah.
Not really abroad, is it though? It's still domestic.
No, I don't even need my passport, technically. Not yet, anyway.
Wow. Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
I am going to Turkey, and then hopefully, potentially next month or 2 months from now, when my parents come, I should be going to potentially one of the places that you've gone. It's on the list. I'm trying to pick where to go, and we'll get into that. So yeah, we thought I brought you. I went through the pain and struggle of bringing back.
This was a lot, and I think this is a point that we should cover during this, is about, bringing beers back and the emotional hardship of if you lose your suitcase with all those beers in, and maybe all of your beer t-shirts, because Tori packed all of it together.
I absolutely did. Not all of it. The shirt that I'm wearing is one from again, I'll get into it later, from a brewery in Greece, and I'll say what it is later. And I think I had this one on me. If you're watching the video and you've seen me in my Boutilia shirt, it's a similar style to my Boutilia shirt, where it's sort of like that football style of like the neck and the sleeves have like that strip of white around it, and then it's got the logo on it. So I really was like, I was happy I had this, but I was really sad because I lost a lot of other things, which I have back now. It's fine. It's fine. That's how you've got these beers for today. Yeah. So kind of can talk about it as, I'll show you the beers. We can show you the beers, and I can kind of talk about it as we sort of make our way through them. But yeah, the beers are from Greece. Obviously, this is from my big trip through Greece. We have Orpheus from Lafkas Brewery. So that is a peanut butter stout. I've had this one already once at the brewery. And then I thought this would be a really interesting one to take back for you. So I took that one back.
I'm excited. I'm glad that we got that one back.
I know. That was probably one of the ones that I was most worried about, because I was thinking, I really wanted you to try that one. And if that one's gone, it's really interesting. And I can tell you a little bit about it anyways, when we get to it, at least what I learned, whether or not I remembered it correctly or not. But I remember being like, oh no, that was the one that I really wanted to talk to you about. So the next beer that I brought back, the way I've done this is I have done it. So I started off in Crete, and Lafkas is in Crete, and then I went to Santorini, and from Santorini I could have brought you back Santorini Brewing, but I knew that you had Santorini Brewing before, so I brought you back Fidelos, which you'll love it. It's double IPA.
Oh, my fave.
It's called Molten Marvel. I had this one as well while I was there. It was really good. For me, I thought it was really good. You might be like, oh, I don't know.
We shall see.
And then this last one, which is the shirt that I'm wearing. I got this from Strange Brew, which is where I got this t-shirt in Athens. And this is called Krampus, and it is a winter ale. So that is, if you're watching the video, that is the bottle. So
I've left that one in the fridge because I want to save it for Christmas.
That's fine. Feel free. I've had a weekday. So I might have it. I don't know.
2 beers feels like enough for a weeknight.
I've had a day, so I can't promise I won't drink it. We'll find out. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I can do, I don't know if this is the smartest way to do it. I can start with Crete. We can have this, and then you can tell me about some of your bits, and then when we move on to the next one, I'll tell you about Santorini.
Sounds like
that sound good?
Right, let's open this peanut butter stout.
Oh, this one could be a bit explosive, so be on the ready.
I've got the.
I feel like I remember it being like really. I might be misremembering, but I feel like it was really carby last time. Oh no, it still has a nice pop to it, but it hasn't exploded, which is good.
No.
Mine is still a bit cold. I didn't remember to take it out. She is a bit foamy.
She is foamy.
Yeah. So this is exactly what happened there as well. She's quite foamy. You kind of have to let her sit. So the reason I thought this one was quite interesting was I went to Lafkas. Really lovely. So I guess sort of a tip from me that I did before I went to Greece is I was researching. I know we've talked about all this before, about top tips for travel and not even travel. I don't remember if I said it before or not, but before I went to Greece, I looked on Instagram. I looked in a lot of places. I was getting suggestions from Reddit, Facebook, just Googling myself, finding what I could find. And then some of it, it's like I went on Instagram and then I went to try to find the breweries to see their opening hours and just follow them, see what they had, that sort of stuff. And I might have mentioned it before, but Lafkas, when I found it, they had put up like a post for International Women's Day because one of the owners is a female, and it's a family-owned business. It's a couple, and I think their kids help out. What I found out when I went there was I think their kids help out as well. I could be misquoting this. I don't think they'll hear this, but if they do, I apologize if I've got this wrong. But basically, I'd messaged them to find out their opening hours and if they did brewery tours, because at the time that I went a few months ago now, it was still like COVID restrictions were still in place there, and it was a bit like wasn't sure if it was going to be open or not. So this was in Hanya. I stayed in Hanya first. When I landed, it was in Hanya before I moved to Heraklion, and this was about maybe 10-15 minute cab ride from the center area where we were staying. And I had messaged them on Instagram to find out their opening hours, and they were like, yeah, it's cool, come down. Like I said, are you open? Can I at least come by to get stuff to go? And they're like, no, we're open, it's good. So we took the cab ride down there, and it was like the small little it just looked like it just looked like a normal business. It wasn't like what you think of a normal industrial estate or anything like that. It was kind of on like what felt sort of like a motorway, but it wasn't. It was like a normal road, but it was quite it looked like a country lane, I guess, maybe in a way. So yeah, we went there, we had the tour, and it was quite reasonable. You could do like a tasting as well. And when I say we had the tour, like they weren't doing a proper tour because they were brewing, but they basically said like, yeah, we're just brewing at the moment. Like you can have a look around if you want, if you want to do the tasting, this is how much it is for the tasting. We can give you the 3 beers that we have on offer at the moment. Nice. And was like, if you have any questions, just ask the questions. It's cool. And yeah, we could see all their kit. There were these 2 girls that looked like they were younger girls, and they were sort of sweeping up all the like liquid that was coming out, that was draining out. And I gathered that must either be his kids or family members of some sort. And I was like, that's really cool that it's just this like, it is proper family owned, like 100%. And then you look out the door, so there's these 2 massive doors that go into the brewery, these like really tall doors, and you look out and you just see these white mountains, which I've brought back a glass from there. And if you're looking at the video, you can see the glass. That's sort of
yeah,
it's two mountain peaks, like a cartoon of like two mountain peaks, and that's because like when you look out you see these like gorgeous white mountains in the background, and I was like, I can't even imagine sitting here and brewing and looking out those doors and you're just like the scenery. It was not like overly populated around the area or anything else like that. It was literally, even though there was businesses around and some houses, it still felt very much like you were, the only way I can describe it, and people in the US probably like get this, is like in New Hampshire, where you maybe have like a city and there's like it can be quite busy. I'm thinking of like where Loon Mountain is in New Hampshire, if anyone knows where that is, Lincoln, New Hampshire. And you can have like quite a busy-ish road, but then you still have these like gorgeous mountains in the background and nature everywhere. So that's what it was like. And then he was really lovely. He sort of talked us through what he was brewing at the time. We got to taste some of the wort as well, which I think it might be a problem, because I actually really genuinely love the taste of wort. Like
basically just like sugary water.
Yeah, but and it's like grainy. It's that like grainy taste that I love. And it's like anytime someone lets me taste the wort, I'm like, oh my God, it's just so, I just love it. Like the smell of it, the taste of it. And it actually is borderline probably a problem that I really like it so much.
You need to get together with Damien and just have
I know, I've never tried whiskey and wort, but I genuinely feel like I would probably really like it. But yeah, so we sort of sat out, we literally, when I say, so he answered all these questions, and then we're like, we want to do the taste. And he's like, yeah. And he was so casual and laid back. He's like, whatever you want. We just go out the side, and there's a bench on the side, and we'll come out and we'll get a bit. I was like, okay. And it's quite literally, do you want to guess what was out the side?
Like to sit on? Or
Yeah.
Like a picnic bench?
Oh yes, but what kind of picnic bench? An orange picnic.
Oh no, an orange one.
I literally was like, oh, big
orange
bench.
benches.
I was like, big bench has got us again. Like they are in the palm of everyone, including like family run business. Like what is happening here? And I did say I was like really excited to try this one in particular. And he's like, it's not peanut butter the way you think peanut butter. Their peanut butter is not as sweet as our peanut butter. So this is meant to be a bit more nutty. And he was saying about how you'll notice probably, if I'm hoping I remember this correctly, and I made a note down somewhere, and I am going to do a write-up of my trip to Greece when I get around to it. I was a bit salty because of my bags being lost, but so I put off writing it for a while, and then life has been mental, so I haven't got back into it. I lost the first draft of it, and then I was like, forget this, they don't want me to write about it, but I will eventually write about it, because there's some really good spots I really want to make sure I covered. And I did note this down somewhere in a notebook somewhere, so I could be wrong, but I believe you were saying like it's quite carbonated as well, because he said the people, maybe it's just in Hanya, maybe it's in Greece as a whole, maybe it's just his experience with craft beer, I don't know. He was literally like, people don't drink beer outside of summer, they just don't. And he's like, so this is, he was telling us about how his profits just like drop the second the summer season's over, like nobody's really wanting to drink beer. So that's the majority of their production. That's kind of when they do anything that's a little bit more interesting, I think. And then come like the off season, that's not summer, they will turn around and they'll do like their core range, which is I think like, I don't know, 2 or 3 beers, if I can remember correctly. But this is one that's like specifically meant to be kind of lighter, because it's a stout that they drink in summer, and I thought you'd appreciate that, because you love stouts
are for life. And it's only 5.7%, so it's sessionable.
Exactly, it's meant to be very sessionable, it's meant to be quite light, it's carbonated, and it should be relatively nutty as well. And it's not going to be peanut buttery in the way that you think peanut buttery, because like I said, that's just, apparently he was explaining to us like their peanut butter's not the same as what we think of as peanut butter. But it was a really lovely day. And then I was like, can I buy a glass? Because I was thinking like they didn't have a lot of stuff at the time, because I think it was like they still were getting used to having people want to visit after COVID. Right. And I was like, can I buy a glass? And they were like, yes. And then I was like, I bought myself another beer to take with, and then obviously the stouts for us. Bearing in mind, this has transported, it's gone through however many temperature changes and whatever else. But I think it still has quite a bold flavour, and it for me, it stands out. pretty well.
It's well carbonated, definitely. It
I
smells like peanut butter.
I thought that was interesting, isn't it, about the carbonation?
Yeah.
Like, yes, because it's like, you know, lower ABV, is more carbonation. It's more like a summery beverage than it is meant to be winter. And we're drinking this now when it's cold out. This was like, I was sat outside roasting, literally just like, I'm about to drink a stout. And it's not heavy. It's not too, some people won't like it because it's not thick, even though like it's a stout and it's not thick. But
not all stouts have to be thick.
But I mean, that's what makes it way more sessionable. And like, I couldn't imagine drinking something like super thick with 3 C's in the summer, because it would just be too much. This was, when I tell you, it was so warm out. We were sitting in shade, thankfully. It was so good and refreshing. And this nuttiness just like lingers once you finish. It's just this lasting nuttiness just stays with you.
And there's I really enjoy it. A little bit of chocolate in there as well. It's nice.
Yeah, when I smell it, it just makes me think of the smell of Greece, what I remember from being in Greece. But it was really good. And like sitting there outside, there was a lovely mural on the wall that covered like the whole process of brewing and like their love of brewing. And that was all sort of on the wall behind us. It was quite literally just, like I said, on the side of a business. Like there was only 1 or 2 tables. We're not talking like a tap yard. We're not talking about a beer garden of any sort. It was literally like, here's our business, here's a picnic table or 2 out the side of which we can host people, and you look over again and you just see the beautiful mountains. I've got a photo, I'll send you the photo if we can put it in. Cool. If not, it will be in whatever blog post I decide to write when I decide to write it. But that was kind of like the one brewery that I got to visit there. But I thought it would be worth mentioning kind of some of the other places that I went to, because I said we stayed quite central. We stayed near I believe was the Minaret, I think is what it's called. And we could be fairly walking distance to everything. So we went to a bottle shop called Beers for Beer, and that had a lot of like local and not local, but a lot of local craft beers. There was a really good selection there, to be honest. And we took some beers from their home. I'll also say some of the supermarkets, maybe not so much in Hanya, but in Santorini, definitely. Like where I've got the double IPA from came from a convenience store. Like it was,
I was like, so,
it was so good.
I did like my honeymoon with my husband. We did Santorini, and I knew of Santorini Brew and Co, the donkey beer, and we planned and went out and saw that and bought some beers and stuff like that. But I think when you're in other countries, have a little scour in the supermarkets and the local shops and have a look and see what they've got, because sometimes you come across like interesting little finds that you didn't know about, like the Volcan beers I had in Santorini. We just found those in like random shops on the beach, and there was like a white beer and a black lager, and like you can find interesting things. You just got to have a little look.
They really like over there. I noticed they really enjoyed doing the Dunkels and the Schwarz beers, like all that. Like they really, and I loved that because I was like, oh yes, like I feel spoiled for choice because I feel like I don't. I mean, they had a lot of. I feel like the closer you got to Athens, the more it was like hoppy, hazy, like exactly what you think of like the craft beer scene as such in that sense. But like in Santorini and like Crete, it was just, especially like the Cretan brewery, there was so many things that I felt were more like Belgian influenced and like German influenced, like those style beers. Like there was like really lovely blonde beers and Dunkels and all that. It was really, really good. But outside of Beers for Beer, so like we kind of walked from our place down to, we knew that we were going to go to Beers for Beer to get some beers for takeaways at some point, and I wanted to go to this place called Ride. Now Ride is really cool. It's a bike shop that also it's a really cool space because it's a craft beer bar and a bike shop, but also has like tables for people to sit and work at. It's got like coffee shop vibes in that kind of sense of like a alternative coffee shop. Had like indie music, think like, I don't know, Elliott Smith type stuff and like, you know, alternative indie, like that kind of stuff. People sat out working on these like wooden coffee tables, exactly what you'd kind of think of as like, get the image, and this is, I'm not saying this is how the people are, but think of an image of like hipster on a bike, like a road bike. Like that is like a European hipster on a road bike. Like that is kind of the vibes that I would describe this shop as, in a good way, because I respect that. They also sold records. They sold lots of like what appeared to be more like local art and like like cards and stuff like that. So it was really, really cool. The music, I really like the music. It's definitely up my alley. And there's some really, really good beers, not just Greek beers. They had, I can't even remember some of the stuff that was there, but I remember seeing it and being like, oh shit, like that's interesting. They've got this here. I'm going to have some of that. And then they had Chaos Brewing and some of the more like locally known breweries on the taps, and it was really good. So I wanted to go there, and that's directly across, or more or less directly across from Beers for Beer. So I knew we were heading in that direction. I'm going to say something that's not beer related, but on the walk from our place down there was this, I feel like I have to shout out because it was really cool, it's like a little bar called On the Road. And it was quite literally just like this window. It was like a serving window to the bar, and it was on the road. Like it was great. It was across from this square that had like outdoor seating for restaurants, so there was like some people playing music out there. I think we walked by and there was a table. Basically they were like, have a drink. We were looking, it was cocktails. It wasn't really beer, it was definitely more like beer wise, it was more like Mythos and stuff like that. But there was cocktails. It was really interesting cocktails, and it wasn't that expensive or anything. And we kind of stopped, we're like, let's just stop for a cocktail, we're on holiday, like let's do it. And then as we were stopped having a drink, we were talking to the people that I'm guessing own it, or I don't know, probably know the people that own it, and they were super nice. They spoke English. We tried to speak Greek to them. It was terrible. So they were like, let's just speak in English, as what usually happens when we go abroad. We try, and then they go English. But across the road where the restaurant is, quite literally there was like a band. It wasn't a band playing, it was like a group that must have been like I don't know, a chorus or something like that, I don't know, or just a group of friends. One of them had a guitar, the guitar was out, and I was just like, what is happening? And it was just a table full of people, one of them playing guitar, all of them singing. And I was like, that looks like so much fun, I want to go over and experience it. But I didn't. I mean, we kind of started walking that way because I was like, I want to go see what that is. But really recommend like on the road, if you're there when it's nice out, because it is just a really lovely spot to stop on your way to other things. And then kind of as you get closer to the beach, there are some cheesy places. And I would say Avalon Rock Pub, maybe a cheesy place. They've got fairly decent beer, but they have like really good rock music, and it's quite literally by the water. So yeah, it's someplace that if it's more affordable, it's definitely one of, some people might look at it and go, oh, that's a dive bar. Some people might look at it and go, oh, it's a bit of like a, you know, tourist trap or something like that. It was fun actually. Just sat there looking out at the water, having some like Cretin, like the Cretin beers there, was really good. Cretin, however you'd say it. I've heard it said both ways. And then yeah, Cretin. Oh, see, I've heard Cretin, I've heard Cretin, and I've not really heard that many people say Cretin, but that's probably how you should say it. So go with that. But yeah, so then there was another place called Rudy's Beer House, and that place, I don't actually think that's the name of it anymore because we couldn't find it under that name, but it still exists. It's exactly as the pictures show. It's exactly the guy, I'm fairly certain the guy's name is Rudy that owns it. He has so many beers. He loves European beers. And there's so many good, he's got a lot of again, like Belgian and German beers, and he does like really good looking charcuterie boards and stuff like that as well. So we went there for a bit. It is a bit more expensive, but that's because he has a lot more imported stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's where I had Orville on tap, because he was like, yeah, I've got one of the only ones of these on tap and all that, and I was like, I'm gonna just have that. So I attempted to try to make a trip trap with some of the stuff that he had as well. I was like, can I have a glass of that and a glass of that? And I just like went to my table and I was like, here, just gonna pour some of these together.
Tori's adventures making trip traps around the world.
Because I was trying to explain to Rick and our friend, I was like, trip traps, it's where it's at. I didn't want the guy to see because I was like, oh, he might murder me if he sees this. But he had like cats. He rescued cats, and the cats were there, and the cats were really lovely, and it was a really good place. And then obviously we went from Hanya to Heraklion, and I went to a place called High Hops, and that place was banging, awesome punk rock music. The guy that owns it is cool, really like a decent selection, not so much that you get lost in what's there, but just enough that you're like, oh, I've got options. Like anyone is catered to. And then we went to another place called Beer O'Clock, which was not my favorite in comparison, but it wasn't bad. It was good. It just felt a little bit more. There was some more local Greek breweries that you could get there, which was good. But it just wasn't as, I like the more like punk dive bar, like that type of feel, and it had that feel to it. It just felt also a little bit touristy in that sense, but it was a good spot, so it's worth checking out if you go there. So that's my Cretian wrap up.
So you said that you looked on Facebook and Reddit. So how did
Reddit, and then I just did Google searches as well.
You just did Google searches. So how did you go about doing that when you were planning your trip?
When I travel, this is what we started doing for Japan, because Japan is so, I might have said this before, so apologies if anyone's heard this before, but Japan is so vast and there's so many things we wanted to do there that I started creating like Google. I think I've definitely said this on planning trips before. We created a Google map. You can do like a selection, like you could do your places and you can create different groups. So we did it for Japan, and I had an Excel spreadsheet as well of like where some place was I wanted to go. I'm a project manager, of course I love an Excel spreadsheet. But it just meant that Rick and I we save it in Google Drive. We could collaborate on things even if we weren't together in the same room. We could like kind of see what someone else has added and then be like, I want to add this. And I created like basic criteria of like, where was it, what was it, what type of activity was it like food, drink, whatever, just to capture everything that we wanted to do, because we started planning quite early for that, because it is an expensive trip and everything else. With Greece, we basically adopted that, and I'll caveat, I'm not a massive stickler for following rules and being like, oh, this is our set schedule and we don't deviate from this. And I know it kind of sounds a bit like I'm creating this itinerary that we can't get out of, but that's not the case. It's just, I always found I hated getting somewhere on holiday and then being like, so what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And there's like, oh, I don't know. Okay, let's Google. Okay. Oh, and then you get, by that point, I'm hangry. I'm like, just find a place to go. Just find an effing place. I'm hungry. I want to eat, or I just want to drink. Like, let's go. And we'd waste so much time. So this just meant that we could go someplace and go, okay, what's around us that we were interested in seeing or doing? Cool. Here's the list of stuff. This is the closest one. This looks quite good. This is what I'm in the mood for. Let's go do that. So that's why we started doing that, and we just had that scaled down version for Greece. I did like a separate food and drinks one. So I started kind of tracking it on an Excel spreadsheet of the places I thought I might want to go, and then I sort of looked into it more, and if it was someplace that looked like it was actually good, I would add it to the Google Doc, to the Google map. And if it was someplace that looked like, yeah, actually maybe not, I would just get rid of it. So that's kind of how I went starting about it. And I will say, I remember being told by so many people that I asked about Greek beer that everyone's recommendation was, well, get used to drinking, like so many people went, just get used to drinking Mythos. And oh yeah, just be aware that the craft beer you find is going to be years behind UK craft breweries, and there's not really that many great breweries out there. Some up and coming ones, but they're really hard to find. And I just remember thinking to myself, I found all these places and all these great beer spots, and I was like, maybe it was because everyone said this, my expectations were quite low. But I tend to go in anyways and make up my own mind on things. And I was just like trying these beers from all these different places and seeing what they had on offer and being like, what are people talking about? There are so many options just out of the limited places that I went. And I'm sure if you went somewhere else, like you went to, I don't know, like Rhodes, or I don't know, a lot of other destinations people go in Greece at, they might not have those options. But I was shocked when people were trying to tell me, oh yeah, the scene there is just very minimal and I think you'll be disappointed. And I went and I was like,
depends on what people want. Like, you know, if you're expecting like the American craft beer scene, you're not necessarily going to find that. But everywhere has its own stuff. Like, one of the things that I loved about being on cruise ships was we would go somewhere and be like, right, we're going to have the beer of the land. We want a beer that is brewed either in this town, in this country while we're there. And yeah, maybe we ended up drinking a lot of, you know, macro stuff because that's what was available. But that's how you learn about different beers and what things are around, and you try all the different things because you're not looking for the same thing that you can get elsewhere. You're finding what's local.
Oh, completely. And I think it's always important to know that like you shouldn't base your decisions, like if someone tells you, oh, this place isn't very good, but you're looking at it and you go, it looks like some place that I would like, and you read always read the reviews, see what people are saying, and then apply common sense about you and how you feel about things and be like, okay, well, actually, you know, don't just take things at face value. But also, if someone is telling you something like, and you think, actually, I don't know if I agree with that based on what I'm finding, like make up your own mind about it. Don't just let someone in the community say to you, oh, it's, you know,
or some random person
it's
on
not
Facebook.
Good. Yeah, or Reddit or wherever else, go, oh, it's not good, it's shit, don't go there. Because it's, if you look at it and the reviews actually don't look that bad and the beer styles actually look like things that appeal to you, what's the worst that happens? You go for we were like, what, we'll go for a lot of these places we'll go for a drink,
yeah,
because we have a lot of places that we can go and see. We'll go for a drink and then have a drink, maybe two, but after that we'll go and we'll leave and go someplace else. And some of these places, like some place I'll mention later, we literally went back 2 nights in a row because it was just like reliable. The staff were really great, the beer selection was like so extensive, and the prices were really good, and it was just like hard not to. But it was nothing that I don't think anyone had really recommended it to me. I just found it. But yeah, I think it was really cool to go on Instagram and to reach out to some of these places to say like, oh, I just want to know if you've got opening hours and stuff. And so many times they were so friendly, so welcoming, so kind. And people would go, oh, we're actually not normally open, but like we can sell you stuff to go if you want. And we're always excited to meet craft beer fans. So like, feel free, if you can make it down here, feel free to make it down here and we can sell you some beer to take away. Or like, we have a table outside that you are welcome to sit and use if you want to sit and use that and no one's there, like that kind of stuff. And I feel like following those breweries and seeing what other breweries follow them, I discovered some places, some venues that were selling the beers of those breweries that were local by seeing who followed them and who was like recommended to me based on that. Like it would be like, I'd look and see like who have they tagged in posts and who's tagged them in posts. And you can see like a lot of it will say followed by this person, this person, this person. And then it would start to, the more you follow those, the more your recommended start picking it up because of the algorithm. And they'll go like, oh, clearly you're going here. Here's some more places that you'll like. So yeah, that definitely worked for me. So.
Oh, top tip there. Have a look at what Instagram recommends, because sometimes these algorithms are actually quite useful.
They are. I mean, I'm not saying that algorithms are always great, that they're always giving you what you want, but in this instance, when it comes to like craft beer stuff, it's definitely worked for me, in my opinion. So what are your final thoughts on the Orpheus?
I really like it. Like, it's definitely a sit and sip it while you're having a chat beer. Like, but it's, you know, it's the kind of thing that you could just have it while you're hanging out. Like, it's not a smack you in the face flavor. And I think if a lot of people read peanut butter stout, they're going to be expecting thick mouth coating, and it's not, but it's still peanut butter and it's still a stout and it's still very delicious. It's just easy drinking. I
find like it's that roastiness and the nuttiness that just it really does stay with you. I know I said it already, but it really truly does stay with you. Of like, every so often you like breathe out and you'll just be like, oh, it's the roastiness again. And I haven't had a sip for a minute. Like, oh, so good. But yeah, I mean, I really recommend it. For me, there are some places that I'll talk about later that I did try to make the trip to go to and wish I hadn't, this is one place that I would absolutely recommend just taking the 10-15 minute cab ride. Although I will say, like, you have to be careful with the cab. It's a bit of like a difficult, they don't really have Uber over there, and but we did find that there was, I think it was like Hermes taxi,
okay,
and you could get the app, and then you could like sort of, although I think they charge you more if you say that you're English speaking as opposed to like Greek speaking. I think there is a difference in price, and you could kind of end up with they tend to send, if you have an English speaking enabled, they'll send someone that obviously speaks English. And like one of the guys we got to take us back from this brewery, he was a few crayons short of a box, but he was funny. But I was also kind of like I'll demonstrate. We got into the cab, and like everywhere over there was like mask at this time.
Yeah.
So we had the masks on, and we were like, okay. So we get in the cab, and he's just like, what are you wearing masks for? You guys sick? We were like, oh, and he's like, you don't have to wear that in here. And we were like, okay. So we just like took it off because we were like, I don't know what to say. Like, all right, like, cool. Meanwhile, I'm like, we're not supposed to be doing this because this is technically against the law. But he's like, no, like it's fine. And then he started. He was lovely. He was funny, but he was very, I would say he was not all the marbles were in the sack. But he was great. Like it was fine. For a moment we were just like, oh, don't know. But then he was talking to us about beer, so I was like, okay, let's just talk about that, and that's good. But yeah, that is a top tip of like, get the Hermes taxi app, but just be prepared that you're going to probably pay more. But it's either that or like don't struggle to get a cab. Like unless someone else can recommend like a better way. We just found that was the best way, and that was the best way throughout like everywhere we went in Greece. So that was kind of, there was a load more places, like a load more breweries. There was like Halma Brewery, there was and that looked absolutely gorgeous. It looked like it was in the mountains, had a beautiful view, a little bit more of like what I would consider probably like traditional style more so. It was interesting because again I felt like their trad was more like blondes and like that kind of like more like Belgian, or like that kind of style was more like their equivalent of like a trad style. And that's just purely my observation. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just what I gathered from the breweries I was seeing. We just didn't get a chance to make it all because some of them, because of COVID, some of them just weren't open full stop. Some of them you had to get like bookings or they were closed certain days, the days that we were there and we were doing something else, or like limited hours. So but all in all, like I feel like it was a really good success, and it was, I definitely recommend it. So I said I'll document all of it more in detail somewhere else. But
I think one of my favorite things when I'm traveling is like just keep your eyes open and like look around you. Like someone said to me once, like a lot of people when they're walking around don't look up, like, and you don't look around, like you're just going forward and you don't look up and see what's really around you in the places that you're in. And that's when you stumble across really interesting things. Like one of the best nights I've ever had in a beer bar, I was walking home in New York, and we'd like it was one of those really random days, and we'd got a week in New York when I was working on cruise ships, because Budweiser bought out our ship and we're using it as a hotel,
as you do, casually.
As they do because they got all the money.
As they do
because they got all the monies. But so it meant that we didn't have to put on the shows that was our regular job. So we had got off the ship, we'd had some lunch, we went to the Pony Bar in New York, which is
I like that name.
really nice craft beer bar, and we'd booked a show, a Broadway show, like later in the week, and my friend and I were like, should we see if we can like get some last minute tickets tonight? Cool, got some tickets to see Matilda. Amazing. Saw Matilda, was walking back to the ship, just kind of wandering down the road, and we were like, there's like a bar down some steps. That looks interesting. Should we stop in for one? Yeah, let's stop in for one.
It's always stop in for one, and it's
didn't get back to the ship till 4 o'clock in the morning. So because this bar was amazing. So, and then we went back like 3 more times.
Genuine question though, if you get back, like, does your ship have a curfew, or is it like you can go if you can come and go when you want?
We weren't the ship wasn't going anywhere. It didn't. We could come and go as we pleased, as long as you were working when you were supposed to, then you could do as you pleased. Normally, yes, like when we're in port and then we're leaving somewhere.
Well, I'm guessing, yeah. Obviously, with the exception of like if you were staying someplace for 2 or 3
Yeah, this was a very unique week because we were literally in port for an entire week. And it was, it was completely different from normal because Budweiser had just gone, we're going to use you as a hotel. We're going to give you new uniforms and we're just going to replace all the beer on the ship with our own.
Yay.
Yeah, it was interesting. And there was a lot of that left over and we had a big party where we got all the free stuff. But of course, Budweiser, that means that we had some Goose Island.
True, yeah. Take the good with the bad. You take the good with the bad. I think I've said it before. I actually quite like chocolate. But I think that's because I'm just used to, like, in the US, that being like their orange Hefeweizens. That's so good.
Chocolate Winterbock.
I had their gingerbread.
Delish.
I think I've had their chocolate, and I've had their gingerbread, and it's really nice.
Good. And because it was a weird chocolate beer, people weren't drinking it, and so me and my friend like filled our pockets with them and had them in our fridge for several weeks. It was great.
That's the dream, isn't it? Is everyone's like, oh my god, Budweiser, like, oh, I don't want those.
They were drinking,
like, that's fine, I'll have those.
They were drinking all the Budweisers, like, because there was Bud Light, Bud Platinum, Bud Light Lime, all the buds. And all we were buds, like, the best buds. And there was like a 10 Hills hoppy IPA.
When you say 10 Hills, I was like waiting for it to be like some weird 3 Hills knockoff or something.
10 Hills from, I think that's what it's called, from Goose Island. And there was Pepe Nero, which is a Goose Island beer, and these winter chocolate box, and we were like, yes please, thank you very much.
Like, everyone, if I can ask you to pass those this way.
Because people were like, because how it goes is that you get the big bins and they'd fill them with ice and then just shove all the beers in there, and people would literally be like scooping through and like move, like taking these chocolate ones out, and be like, what is that? And we were like, thank you. It's great.
Absolutely love it. But yeah, I mean, saying about the, like, when you look up, I think a lot of times people can get busy going, oh, I'm in this location, look down at my phone, right, and they don't really stop, or sometimes it is just like you're so taken back by like what is immediately around you that you don't pay attention. I know I can, like, people watch or be like, what is that? Like, I get a lot of overstimulation of like so many things going on in a new place, but like with the whole, it's funny, but the whole don't, remember to look up thing. I remember that being one of the tips that Rick and I were told about Japan, because the way Japan is their buildings, like all of it, because especially in Tokyo, it is very densely populated. It is more or less like kind of a land grab, because there's so not a lot of space, but they do have all these buildings and each floor has a different business on it, and it's not like they're all advertised at the bottom all the time. It's very much like you'll see signs for things on the top of the buildings, and if you're not looking up, quite literally looking up, like, you might not see it. And there's like some really good, if you like games and nerd stuff, there's like some good shops that are up on a higher floor, or some good bars that are up on a higher floor, or restaurants. And if you're not looking up, you might quite literally miss the sign of like, oh wow, that's some place to go. I remember going to, even then, like, sometimes you go there and if you don't look around, you'll miss out on it. Because I remember going to Miyajima. I think I've talked about this before, but going to Miyajima and walking around the streets of Miyajima, and we just took a day trip there, and seeing like a brewery that had like a queue waiting for it, and it was like this limited edition beer that they had put out. I think it was like a maple beer or something. And I think they were celebrating a birthday, or something was being celebrated. I don't know if it was like a festival versus like birthday or something like that. And I was like, beer, like, this will be cool. Let's, like, we would do a break anyway, so I was like, let's stop and have this. And it was just like such a really good experience, because the beer was amazing, so good, and the owner very friendly. A lot of times in Japan, like, if they see somebody that is Western, they're like, if they have any English or they want to like practice their English, they'll come up to you and talk to you because they want to practice, or they're just very grateful, and they'll be like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Like, not in a negative way, but like in a, why would you come here? Like, you could be anywhere. Why are you here? Sort of thing. And it's like, this seemed like a really cool place to stop. And I remember I think it was the owner, he introduced us to the brewer at the time, and he was like, share these snacks with us, and he brought out like bar snacks, and it was like the table next to us, and he's like, let's all share snacks, and we were like, okay. And he didn't charge us or anything. It was just such a good experience. The beer was amazing, and it's some place that if I hadn't been looking around as much, I completely would have missed it, because it was just a shop in the middle of other shops. It was like there was all these food stalls and vendors and everything, and this was just like a shop front that had some decking outside, and it could have easily been food. And I was like, did someone say beery? And I was like, I am there, like, yes, thank you. So it was really good. I was just like,
There's a +1 for planning, but also a +1 for keeping your eye open and seeing what's happening and going, oh, let's try that.
100%. And like I said, the planning, that's what I mean. It's like when I tell people how I plan things, people are like, oh, well, I'm like, no, I don't want you to think that I'm rigid, strict to a schedule. It is quite literally of like, if I, especially in Japan, because Japan is like the place you want to roam around and just find what you find. But I was like, it's just there as an insurance policy. That's the best way I can describe it. It's there as an insurance policy, so that if I am struggling, I have something easily that I can turn to and go like, boom, done.
And I feel like these tips are not for people that just want to, you know, lounge at the beach and not like, like I'm a person that
I'm not a beach
no, I'm not a lounging on the beach by the pool, blah blah. I want to go do stuff and see things. Like,
I love that word you just said. I'm going to use that. Did you say blow blah?
Blah blah.
You said blow blah, and I was like, that's amazing. I'm using that. No, I don't even mind a bit about, like, I wouldn't even mind. My goal is to someday at least go one place that has a swim up bar. That's my dream. I just want to go to a swim up bar and order like
I like to do
pina colada in a bar. But so we are very much.
I like to know what things there are that I could do. And you know, sometimes you do, like, sometimes it's recommended that you book these things in advance, but you know, sometimes you can be a bit looser about it. But if you don't know they're there, then you can be wandering aimlessly and miss the good stuff. So have a happy balance.
Oh, 100%. And like, be willing to, just be willing to, like, if you see, so factor in if you're going abroad, pad in enough time for you. This is just a tip overall, not even just a beer tip. Pad in enough time, few hours each day, for you to like stop, see something and be like, I want to go in. Because again, not to bring it back to like my Japan trip, but I remember like we would go in the shops, and the way that I was saying about these shops, and they're multi-floors, and a lot of times they have no windows to the outside world. And you go in there and you're like, it was 10 o'clock when I went in, and you're like, how am I leaving? And it's 12. Like, it is, and it's floors, like 5 floors, and you're just like, what did I just see on that? I've seen things I can't unsee. What is this thing over here? Like, this is incredible. And then because you don't see the changing of the light outside, and it's all just like under fluorescent bulbs, all of a sudden you're looking and you don't have people phoning you because you're not on the same type of data that you're on at home. Before you know it, you're like, oh cool, I've just spent 2 hours inside of a shop and I've done like 2 floors of that shop. And you're like, how? And there's still like 3 more floors to go, and you just have to call it and be like, no, I can't do anymore. So it's definitely like pad in extra time for yourself to decide that you've seen a cool bar, or you've seen a cool shop, or anything like that, and you just want to stop and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go explore that for a bit, even if you have planned activities. But also, just try not to over plan, because that will get so, I feel like that for me would be suffocating. For some people it might be anxiety relieving. For me, that's like anxiety inducing, where it's like, I said I'd be here at 5. I need to be there at 5, and I know I won't be. That would just give me more stress, I think.
Yeah, my visit abroad this year was for work, so it was planned to the minute, and that was difficult.
Oh, so that's it. I feel like you'll have to let's crack over one more bit, because Santorini's quick. I'll tell you about Santorini, and then you can tell us about being over prepared what it's like the opposite was. Granted, it's for work, but
Yeah.
if you were look at it through the lens of if you were doing it as a person that was traveling for pleasure as opposed to business, because I think that would be really interesting to sort of hear the opposing story. But basically, crack open this double IPA because it's, like I said, it's been a day.
My favorite style.
It's your favorite. I was like, Joanne loves a dipper, and what can I do but get her a dipper? Really, I feel like I probably should have done a little bit of roll on this first, but that's fine. I got it because I had it and it was really good, and it was like the fact that I could get it at a local convenience store blew my mind. I hope it's held up at least a little bit, because obviously it will be hoppier.
I like the label.
The label is cool. Do you want to describe the label?
It looks a
The
bit
artwork's
kind
cool.
of Keith Haring-y.
Yes.
Cartoony, and it's like in a colour palette of pinks, reds and blues. A little bit of cream. There's a person with a volcano for a head.
It was Santorini. So
Yeah. And then there's a sausage dog and a cat and a boat. Sunglasses, a turtle,
A lute.
and some patterns.
If you're watching the video,
A donkey, obviously, because it's Santorini. Is that a hop down in the corner, do you think?
Yes, I would say that's a hop or an acorn, but I'm going to guess it's a hop.
And some barley.
If it was an acorn and not a hop, I'd be like, well, that's weird and interesting. Okay.
A pine cone. I think it's up.
It's a pine cone. I didn't see a single pine tree there, so that would be
no, I don't think I've
more
seen
interesting. But yeah, this was really, I remember this being like nice, sweet, fruity, tropical, and quite sessionable
fruity.
for a double IPA. Because I think sometimes double IPAs, especially when it verges into triple IPAs, could just be so strong and boozy that it almost takes out the enjoyment, because like the flavor's not there, it's just boozy. That's why I like double IPAs, because I feel like double IPAs for the most part don't tend to hit that like too boozy. They're still, for me anyways, in my taste buds, it smells tropical
pineapple, a bit of peach, bit of apricot, bit of berry maybe.
And keep in mind when you drink this, even though it's not your preferred style, that this was picked up at a convenience store.
It's fruity. It's held up very well.
It has, actually. I just took a sip. I was like, surprisingly, yes.
Yeah.
This is good. I will take this. I was drinking this by the pool with this gorgeous view. That's like the way our pool was. We stayed at a place called, I think, Dream Island was what it was called. Sounds like a bit of a porno-y name. And it made us laugh every time, because we're like, there's three of us. It's me, Rick, and our friend. 2 dudes and me, basically. And I was like, we look like weird throuple. We're staying in this. It was a really cool little like 2-bedroom place that was like, yeah, it was great. There was like a little plunge pool there. That's another thing about Greece, is they tell you that hot tubs or like jacuzzis, the jacuzzis, they don't call them hot tubs, they call them jacuzzis, because the water isn't hot. Cold. Right. But I think it's more like because it gets so hot there, it's more like a plunge pool than it is like a heated thing. And maybe it's not everywhere, but when I read reviews for other places, they said the same thing, where they were like, it says jacuzzi in the description, and people go, a hot tub wasn't hot, and I was like, it said jacuzzi, didn't say hot tub. But having this in the extreme heat overlooking the gorgeous ocean, because it basically went pool, railing, ocean, I was just like, life is good. I think I was checking in on an email or something for work. My manager was like,
you were on holiday, girl, what were you doing?
He was like, log off. And I was like, literally, I sent him a photo of what I was looking at, and I was like, I'm hardly struggling. Like, I just thought I would check in on messages while I had 5 minutes. Like, trust me, it is not a burden. But yeah, pretty much, like I said, the only actual brewery that I went to in Santorini was Santorini Brewing, and that was the best fucking experience of my life. Like, I just want to not the best experience of my life. The catamaran tour we did in Santorini was probably the best experience of my life. I was living. I'm a boat people, Joe. I'm a boat people.
You have said this to me before
so many times. I'm a boat people. I live for the boat. I honestly, if I could own a catamaran with my millions of pounds that I don't have, I would be on it all the time. It was great. Like nobody wanted to sit on the netting up front. I was like, what are you wieners doing? Like get on the boat. They were all on the back. It was a lot of Americans, and no offense, I can say this, I'm American. They were all sat there. So we decided, I'll set the scene for you. We decided, this is nothing to do with beer, but I'm going to tell you about it. We decided to do this boat tour. We wanted to do a boat tour, and we had an option between paying like a little bit more and doing a private tour with just the three of us and someone, but it was on not a catamaran. It was a smaller boat, but it wasn't like the smallest boat. It was just like a little speedboat thing. Or we could do the catamaran for a little bit less, but it was a group with could be up to 20 people max. Both included lunch, but it was different types of lunches. And so we went with this group tour because one of our friends was like, it'll be quite good if there's other people because we can socialize, and then it doesn't feel like it's just, not that we necessarily go, it's the three of us, but he was like, oh, it'll be good, we can socialize. So I was like, fine, okay. So we'll do the cheaper one, it'll be good. It ended up being lots of couples, and they're like, I'm here on my honeymoon, or like, we're getting married next year. And then they all just interacted with each other. And I was like, oh, okay. And by the end of it, this was a sunset cruise. Like, bear in mind, it was about
how romantic,
5 or 6 hours. We went a few different spots, did swimming, snorkeling, like everything else. And it ends with watching the sunset in the area of Santorini that is very famous for sunsets. So instead of being up with everyone else crowded around, you're on this like gorgeous boat watching the sunset. And it was like basically all you could drink. They didn't necessarily come around all the time to give you drinks, but if you went up there and you're like, another one please, they were like, yeah, sure, here you go. It was mythos, but it was fine, it was good, it was in the moment, it felt right. And like all these Americans were in the back talking about like going to school, like going to uni basically, and like getting their degree and like getting married. And at one point I walked in, all they were talking about was football, like American football. I went in to get another drink. I went in to get another drink because I was like, I need to booze for this sunset. It's happening. And I went to get another drink or two. And then they were back there just literally chatting about American football. And it was like only a handful of us at the front of there was maybe like 2 or 3 other people at the front of the boat. I was so all over that netting in the front. I was like, guys, like, what are we all doing here? I couldn't believe that they chose to spend their time sat at the back of the boat having a chat inside, not even on the deck of the back of the boat,
like inside the boat, inside
yes,
the catamaran.
Yes, inside the catamaran at the table. Literally, they were all sat in there just having a chat about
of going on a boat cruise. And like, you're just going to stay inside. And like
razzing each other about, well, your team this and your team that. And I was like, guys, there's a sunset outside. Like, live. Like, why don't you come on a sunset boat cruise? Them. You've paid however much to go on a sunset boat cruise. You're not even watching the sunset. And I don't even remember them coming out when it was happening. Like, they were all back there talking, and I was like, what the fuck? But anyways, that was
maybe somebody bought it for them. Maybe they weren't boat people.
All of them. I just think none of them are real boat people. I'm the only real boat person here. Like, I was like, come on. I was stood on the front of the boat for like 90% of the time. Like, I was like, guys, everyone else enjoy this like I am.
I'm the king of the world.
I did. I was like, someone Titanic me. It was great. I fucking loved it. I would have gone on that boat every day. Like, if I had the funds, I was like, I'd come back here tomorrow. Like, hands down, not a problem. But yeah, nothing to do with Santorini Brewery or actual craft beer, but that was the best experience. But Santorini Brewery was so, I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear how you went, because like obviously we stayed in, I don't remember the main bit of like where the port is in Santorini, and the name's escaping me at the moment. But there's like buses that will take you out, and the buses are quite cheap. So we looked at a cab, and our hotel was like, see if you can take a bus. It's really easy. It's one of the stops along the way. And we were like, cool.
The buses are super easy.
Super easy. I was expecting to be more difficult. Nah, it was really easy. And the guy spoke English, and he just knew.
He knows a beer person when he sees it, and he knows that all we're doing is going out to Santorini.
So we went someplace. No, we went to someplace first.
You went somewhere else first. That's all I did. And we went out there. We had a little wander around. We bought some stuff, took some pictures, got back on the bus, went back to Santorini.
I forget the name of the place that we went to, but I think it had a similar name as like a fish. Like it's not
Any
the same.
particular
No,
fish?
I'm trying to think. It's not the same. It isn't the same name as a fish, but it's like close in name to it. If you like said the name slightly, if you mispronounce it, basically. And I remember basically my friend, we were saying it the right way, and our friend said it the wrong way, and the guy was like, no, first you go here, then you have blah blah blah, like whatever fish it is. And we were like, I can't believe you just called it that. And it was just like, is that not how you say it? We're like, no. So we went to that place first, and then on the way back we went to Santorini Brew because we were going to an open air cinema at night. So like, we just need something for a few hours. And the cinema was great. The open air, I cannot, if you're in Greece, there's a lot of open air cinemas, cannot recommend that enough. That was a really good experience. We thought we'd nip to Santorini Brewery for a bit. It was amazing. There's this like I don't know if she's a co-owner or what, but this lady that was working, there's two women that were working, and they were so badass, so awesome. By the end of it, we got there about an hour or so before it closed, thankfully. I bought a t-shirt, which I'm not wearing today, but a ladies cut t-shirt, which almost got lost in my bag. Was really sad about that, but I got it back. It's fine. Literally did like samples of all the beer. We sampled all the beer. It was really great. And then as they were getting close to closing, they started like turning up the music. So it was just us there, and they were playing like Fleetwood Mac and stuff. And I was just like, yes. I was like, this is such a good mid-end to the day, because it wasn't the end of the day, but I was like, this is such a great way to spend the day before getting dinner and going to the cinema. Like it was really good. So I definitely recommend that. And they were so knowledgeable, and they had like a really good range, and they were very patient, and it was very visitor friendly. I think from start to finish it was very visitor friendly. Like I said, the stop is quite literally outside the brewery. How did you get there when you went?
We took the bus. We just jumped on the bus, got off at the bus stop, walked along, went in. I mean, it's not massive, is it? It's quite small. And
when you went, because there's a whole front to it, whatever, but when we went, all of that was shut, and it was just literally go around the back, up some stairs, and it's this tiny little deck bit on the back, pretty much.
So I went in 2017, and you just kind of went in and into a room, and it was like, here's the brewing equipment, here's our little bar where you can have some tasters, buy stuff.
Yeah, we didn't see the brewing equipment.
Oh yeah, so we could go in and see the brewing equipment when we were there. I think it's probably expanded since I was there, which is a while ago now. I've been married 5 years now.
It was quite so it was like, it looks like quite a big house, restaurant-y like type establishment, except at the front, I think because of COVID they weren't doing a lot of this stuff, so it was like the front of it where you'd normally go in was like, oh sorry, shut, like go around the back for the bar. So it's just, you go around the back, and there's like, you go up some stairs, and it's this patio area that goes into the bar area with all the merch and stuff. But that was just literally, it's the same building, but it's out the back of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because it's open and it's airy.
Yeah.
I imagine because of COVID, they could have more people stood out there than inside. But it was a really, really good experience, to be honest. Would definitely recommend to other people. And then, I didn't really make it to anywhere else, because deceptively, Santorini, you do, in my opinion, and I don't know, it would be good to hear if you disagree, I do kind of think you have to rent a car or like a 4-wheel thing or a motorbike or something. The problem being, I kind of knew that when going. Not that you have to, it's just, it makes it easier to go to some of the more remote places.
You definitely need transport to get around. Like there's the
buses
main,
will get you so far,
and there's the kind of the main bit, which is, all that where you see all the pictures of the cobbled streets and the cliff views and whatnot. We stayed further out and got the bus into that, and then did some bits further out and some beachy bits and things. But you need to use transport to get around, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. We got by without. It was Thera that we stayed in. Basically, that's how I just looked it up. It was Thera that we stayed in, which is kind of where the main port is, and it's kind of right when you come in. That's when you go up, you come in for the port, and then depends on how you get there. We took like the hotel's transport, which was like a minibus. Oh my God, going up those hills, the windy hills, I was like, we're probably going to die here. This is great. But I trusted them because I was like, these guys obviously know what they're doing. But oh my God, anxiety level. And it's Oya that is where you typically see the photos from, all the white buildings with the blue domes. And that's where all the sunset is pretty much. I'm trying to find, oh yeah, that's this Kamari. Kamari is where we went. And my friend kept calling it calamari. And we were like, it's not called calamari. And the guy was like, no. First you go to Kamari, then you have calamari. And he was like, what, did I not say it right? And we were like, you literally said calamari. But yeah, my tip for Santorini is like, we didn't rent any public, like we didn't rent any transport because my friend doesn't have a license, so it would have been me and Rick driving, and I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable on a quad, and the roads are really small, so it's like, if you have a license and you feel comfortable driving on the really, really small roads, then like go for it. And that's the best way to get around, and you'll get really good deals. Everyone will stop you all the time and be like, do you want a quad? Have a quad. And you're like, no. But if not, buses will suffice. Like, don't be put off. It is just Santorini is more expensive. They have what I believe is probably some good wineries, but I didn't go to them. I had the wine, just didn't go to the wineries. They're quite good, worth visiting. And I think it's worth visiting if you have the money. I wouldn't stay for a tremendous amount of time compared to other places because it is expensive and there's not a huge amount to do. If you can day trip there, that's great. But if you do go there, Santorini Brew, and check out the convenience stores. That's my tip for that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, while I drink the rest of this before I talk about the end of my trip, why don't you talk about what it was like to go someplace and be on a tight schedule?
Yeah, we were on a pretty tight schedule because because it was a work trip, we went to some hop farms, and we went to some experimental hop growing facilities. We went to the hop museum. So it was very scheduled, and your problem with that sort of thing is you've got to be at a place at a certain time, and you're reliant on planned buses getting you there. And it got a bit looser at the end of the tour, and we had planned in, so Germany, I'm a little bit lagered out.
Because, was it just like lager all day,
every day? I like lager, but in Germany you say beer and there's a Helles. It's all just yellow, or just yellow beer, which is fine. But towards the end we then did go to in Munich. We went to True Brew's Tank Bar, and they are
need to write all these
much
down.
more. They're much more craft than like your regular lagers you're getting everywhere else. Which obviously it's Germany. They're good quality lagers. Like these are good lagers that you're getting, but it's a lot of lager, or ice beer, depending on where you go. But we went to True Brew. They had a Australian hopped beer on called Australia.
Creative.
And a New Zealand hot beer called New Zealand, which we enjoyed because we had two people who were Australian on our tour. Solid. So they had Australia and had a picture of the two Australians drinking Australia, obviously. I actually got a fruited sour there that was called Funk Up the Jam, I want to say. But it was like, I was like, fruited sour, oh my God, give me all of that, please.
Was it a Berliner Weiss, or was it just literally?
I think it was just fruit. It wasn't a Berliner Weiss, it was just fruit sour.
Plain fruit sour.
Yeah. It was very thick, so it was not a Berliner Weiss. And they had cans as well in the fridge. You could take cans away. They had a Marzen, Festbier Marzen. It wasn't as Marzen-y as I like. It was a bit more Festbier-y.
It wasn't Marsden enough for the Marsden Club.
Because I'm picky. But
but we discussed this if you've listened to the episode already on Oktoberfest, or we've mentioned it on I think every Oktoberfest that we've done. We're like, you just don't know what you're getting.
I'm picky about that. But yeah, they had a really good selection of different things like hoppy beers, lagers, fruited beers, all the different kinds of beers that you could try. So that was really good. And that night we hadn't decided what we were doing for dinner, so we just had a little search, did a little Google search, and we decided we didn't want Bavarian food because we've been eating Bavarian food all week. And we were like, oh, what about this Mexican place? Let's go have Mexican.
That's a risk.
Literally like 4 minutes around the corner. It was pretty good. But magically it suddenly turned into a club.
Oh yeah, you did tell me about this.
Yeah, some people were drinking liters of cocktails out of glass masses, and and then magically it turned into a club and everyone was dancing on the tables. So
you just sat there eating your meal, and then all of a sudden were people like wheeling tables away, or
no? So it was all kind of like long benches anyway,
like Oktoberfest style.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were you come in the door and we were off to one side, and then there was another section round past the bar that was all laid out as tables. And like the music.
What colour were the benches?
They were black, so it wasn't orange. No,
Big Bench hasn't gotten into Munich.
No. And the music was kind of dancey anyway, and then it just kind of kept cranking up, and I was like, oh, this music's getting really loud. And then suddenly it was properly like pumping, and people were just like, yeah, we're getting up on the tables.
Have a proper conversation, and all of a sudden you're like, I feel like this is a bit louder than it was about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, and then everyone was just dancing on the tables, drinking their liter masses of cocktails. Oh, it was interesting.
Solid.
But that might go on the list of places that need visiting.
Yeah, I need to pick your brain all these places to go, because as I was saying, I'm trying to plan trips. I'm basically, like I said, I'm in Turkey mode, not as in the food, as in the
Thanksgiving and
Christmas. Yeah, sort of. Also that as well. But mainly my brain is Istanbul, not Constantinople.
Nice
mode. So trying to find places there. And
have you found craft beer in Istanbul?
It is not easy.
FS? I think when I was in Turkey I drank a lot of FS, and I drank a lot of Leffe.
So I have found some places that look to do craft beer. It is quite difficult because it's mixed. It's quite mixed reviews. Like something will say 4.5 stars on it. You're like, okay, that's not too bad. And then you look at it, and some people are like, yeah, the people are really rude that work there, and it's not inviting. And they're like, okay, kind of. If these are being translated from Turkish, and I don't even speak Turkish, like, I don't want to go. Like, I don't know if I should go there. And then other places that look really good in photos, you look and it's like 3.9 stars. And this is what I mean about, like, then you look and you're like, oh, but it doesn't look like it's actually that bad. So do I put that on the list and give it a go? My Turkish friend, her favorite beer, the only beer she drinks beer, but like not that much. And her favorite is like Asahi, and not above it, like, respect, but also I'm like, yeah, she's not going to be able to help out too much other than just being able to translate things for me and say, like, yeah, this is a good spot. She did send me one the other day that looked like it was actually quite good, and that was not in Istanbul, it was in where the wedding is. And actually weirdly, where the wedding is, which I thought was going to be more restrictive than Izmir, than Istanbul, is Izmir where the wedding is. There's almost more spots that I found on a Google search, and more breweries and all that. So it'll be interesting, because I know going to some place like Turkey where there is that heavy like Muslim culture, where drinking's not sort of as big culturally, I can understand why craft beer may not be, where it is in other parts of the world, but hoping to at least find a few gems. And I was going to message Joey
Yeah.
Because I remember when we had
Joey from Beer in the City.
Yeah, Beer in the City, Joey. He is a lovely human being. He is one of the friendly, warmest human beings. I met him in person like for the first time a good few weeks back now. And it's like he is just as lovely and warm in person as he is online. And like genuinely, he says hi and you're just like, he's just a person that just you want to be around. I don't know, it's just that he's got that personality of someone that just like he could hold court in a room and I feel like people would just be like, yes Joey, whatever you want. He is really lovely. But I know that he had mentioned about being over in Turkey, and I know that was like quite a while ago, but I think he mentioned he might still have some friends over there, so I might have to ask him and pick his brain and be like, any recommendations that you know of to
Top tip, use your beer connections.
Yes, so I'm going to use Joey potentially for that if he has any places, and then Munich, I'm going to use your brain for that. So
I've not got a huge amount of things that are crafty in Munich.
It doesn't have to be like I just want good beer. So if you can tell me,
we did go in
good beer in restaurants,
an Irish and Australian bar.
That's funny. Why are they combining the two?
I don't know. I was like,
is that something where they're like, same?
It was really weird. I don't know what happened. Like we had dinner and then we were like, oh, let's go find another beer. Oh, it's so-and-so's birthday and they want to go to this Irish bar around the corner. And we were like, really? We're in Germany. Okay, cool. And we went round and we walked in, and like the top, there's like a bar upstairs and then you go down some more steps and there's a bar downstairs, and it looks like the bar upstairs is themed after an Irish bar, and then you go downstairs and it's themed after an Australian bar. I bought a pint of Guinness and we went back outside again because it was really weird. We were like, no, this is too much. We're going out now.
That would make me laugh. I feel like that is a place I have to go to because like those mishmash is funny. It's also the same as like in the US when it's like when it says something's like an Irish bar, or they'll be like, oh, this is a pub, and then you're like, this is not. You're like, this is not a pub. This is not a pub. This situation's not a pub. There's very few Irish pubs and English pubs, quote unquote, that actually feel like they are authentic.
I went to an English pub in Texas once, and they were like, "Yeah, is this like a pub?" And I was like, "No."
You're like, we've done it, and you're like,
and they were like, "Look, there's a red telephone box." I'm like,
yes, because all of our pubs have red telephone boxes in them.
And I was like, "There's something wrong about it." I'm looking at it. I was like, "Well, it's too short." I was like, "But there's something wrong with it. The font's not right." It's like there's something just off about it. And they were like, is the rest of it like a pub? And I was like, no. I was like, it doesn't smell right. I was like, it has to smell like ingrained stale beer that's been spilt over many years. I was like, and the floor needs to be a bit stickier.
Yeah, I love the smell of stale beer. Like, honestly, I genuinely really do.
Like, it's got to be soaked into the wood of the bar.
I feel like that's what I need to do the next time I build like a outdoor. If I build a bar, I need to just let it soak.
Some beer.
Marinate in beer for a while. Yeah, I remember going in the US. There's one place that it's a place called Wax. I'll name it. I don't care. There's a place called Waxy O'Connor's because I remember it specifically, the name of it, because there's also one in Glasgow. But the one in Glasgow, I don't think they have anything to do with each other. I don't actually know. But the one in Glasgow, like, literally has it's like a maze. There's like two entrances to it, and there's one part looks like a cave, another part looks like a cathedral. It's really cool. Wow. It is cool. The beer's not good. It's not a good beer selection by any means, but it's cool. The one in the US, like, not so much. And I remember
they've always got bloody fish and chips on the menu.
But it's not ever like right. And I don't even like fish and chips, but I know, I look at it, I'm like, that's sad. No, there's only been one place that I have found, at least where I'm from, that has been a little bit more authentic. I think it's called like the British Beer Company. But that was actually had some stuff on the menu that I was like, oh, okay, that's somewhat authentic. It would be like Toad in a Hole or something like that. I'd be like, oh, okay,
bangers and mash.
Yeah, like no one else has that. Okay. So I remember going into Waxy O'Connor's after having been here and having a snake bite here. Now, if I said to you, I'm ordering a snake bite, what would you put in that drink for me?
It's either...
I just want to check if it's like just a location thing or if it's like all of the UK.
It's either beer with blackcurrant in it, or it's cider with blackcurrant in it.
So the snake bite I know is 50% beer, 50%. So it's a 50% lager, 50% lager, 50% cider, and then blackcurrant cordial in it.
Yeah.
And then it's pink. It'll stain the fuck out of your clothes if you spill it on yourself. It looks good. It tastes so sweet. Your teeth will feel like it's rotting, and you'll probably feel sick if you have more than like 2 max. I would say like 2 in my younger years. Now I have 1, and I'm like, the heartburn, it's setting in. I can't deal with it. I am old now. And I remember coming here to visit Rick before we got married and having like the snake bite for the first time at the Purple Turtle and being like, yes, this is like, this drink is for me. Like, I love this. And then I remember going to Waxy O'Connor's in the US in the this is like doxing, like nearby to where I live, but whatever. No one cares enough to dox me. I'm not important enough. So I remember going in and being like, snake bite, cool, I'll have that. That's great. I've never seen that in the US before. Happy days. Now I understand like there is probably where I'm from maybe a little bit more proper like Irish bars because there's more of like an Irish culture there. But it is still definitely different than like UK pubs and stuff. But they gave me what they gave me was a Guinness. It was like Guinness that I think that maybe they topped up with cider.
Oh.
And I was like, why is this dark? I was like, this is not. No. I just was like, this should be pink. This should stain my clothing. I shouldn't want to spill this. I should be afraid to spill this because of what it might ruin. This is dark coloured.
That
what
sounds
even
like
is
some kind of wrong black and tan.
I think it was like similar to a black and tan, and I was like, this is not
black and tan is lager and stout.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know what they made, but it is not a snake bite. But they don't know that what they've made is not a snake bite. They think it's real, which is like top tip number whatever. When you travel abroad somewhere, like, don't immediately expect
everything to be the same as at home.
Yeah, it's not. Even if it's called the exact same, it may not be the exact same. Yeah, the only thing,
and that's okay because you're in another country.
Yeah, but the only place that I would say actually, again, bringing it back to Japan, they really put the eye in the detail. I went into, if you are, I can say that they're opening back up in October for visa-free travel. By the time this episode comes out, maybe they're already open. I don't know. If you've ever wanted to go, highly recommend. You can come talk to me on Instagram, adventures_in_optimism. I'll talk to you about Japan all day long and recommend you a million things. But Hub, there's a chain of pubs called Hub, and it's the place where like Japanese people go to meet foreigners. Because they know it's meant to be an English pub, and they know that that's where like they'll play the football matches, like UK football matches, rugby, like all that. It's modeled after the British pub, and when they commit to detail, they fucking commit. So it is very accurate. It's very weird to go into one in Japan and then just be like surrounded by Japanese people. It's normally where people want to go if they want to get bought a drink by a Westerner because they want to talk to them or whatever else. So that's what it's known for. I'm not making that up. That's like literally what I've been told is like, oh yeah, that's where, you know, the Japanese people will go if they want to try to date like a Westerner or something, because that's the place that they know, or practice their English, because that's where they know there's definitely going to be foreigners. And we went in just as a joke and it was funny. But other than that, don't expect any other country to be like, it's a pub, and then you're like, it's not a pub. What is happening?
Why is it Irish and Australian? I don't understand.
That makes me laugh so hard.
It's very like, confusing.
It's Irish and Australian. As if
and
they
I was
were like,
very tired
same.
At that point,
good.
and I'm like, I don't understand what's happening here, but I'll take a Guinness, thanks.
I do like a good Guinness. Like if there's not really anything else that interests me on the bar, I'm like, Guinness it is.
Yeah, exactly. The person with me was like, Helles, and I was like, Guinness,
Guinness,
please. I am lagered out. Thank you so much.
But yeah, definitely ask your friends for tips if you know someone's been there and it's someone you trust that knows your taste, because I know that I can ask you and you'll be like, don't go here, this place is shit, or definitely go here. Like the Mexican place, like I like Mexican food, you know how I feel about Mexican food. Do I want to go to that Mexican place? Will I be upset?
Not for food.
Not for food, but for the dance club.
For the dance club.
I might enjoy that actually.
And the liter masses of cocktails, then yes, you do.
Okay, maybe I'll need to do
the
that.
food, you'll be upset by the food. You will be.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I respect that. Thank you. I'm not going to open this last one now because now I kind of want to save it.
Save it for Christmas.
But this is representative of my trip to Athens, and I've got, like I said, I've got my Strange Brew top on. It's my Strange Brew beer. I will shout out the best. So Greece has amazing coffee places. Gonna shout out Dope Roasting Co, that's what it is, in Athens. Amazing. They do an iced pistachio latte. We went there we went once, then we tried another place for breakfast / just coffee because we're not big breakfast people. And after that we were like, the next day we're like, should we just go back to Dope? Like, we know we like it there, let's just keep going back there.
Sometimes you're just like, that's my spot now.
It's very hipstery, but that's me, aren't I? I am like elder emo hipster. That's what I am. I am an elder emo. I'm a hipster. Like, I get it. Understand. I like coffee. I'm that meme that someone posted the other day of like, choose 2 personality traits, and it's like beer and coffee. I was like, I guess that's me. Like, gotta catch them all. So that is that's the one place that I would say, like, they had really good pastries as well. Like baked goods. There was like a thing that was filled, it was like a dough ball thing, and it was filled with, one had like latte filling, which is fucking amazing. One had chocolate, one had cream, and I could think you could get other ones, but I only had those 3. I had them on different days. They were so good. So yes, that is the place to get coffee if you want coffee, but we're not about coffee on this podcast. It's about beer.
We are about coffee too. Let's get real.
We're about coffee as well. It's true. But yeah, I went to quite a lot of places in Athens. I guess what I would say is, we tried to go to a place called Beer Man, but that place actually doesn't show as closed on Google. I'm saying it here because it looks like it would be quite a good spot, and it still shows us on Google, but actually it's been replaced by some place called, like, I think like Tarzan Bar or something. It's just a standard bar. It was good. We ended up staying for like a drink because we were like, I guess this is the place. Oh, it's not. Okay, let's stay there. And we got a drink there, and it's just cocktails. And it was really good cocktails. But if you're looking for a beer, don't look for Beer Man because it doesn't exist anymore. There's also Noctua Brewing, which I think is one of the bigger breweries that are well known. We were not particularly far from the brewery. It's about 20 minutes away, maybe 15-20 minute walk away. We started walking there. Well, we walked all the way there, and the opening hours on Google weren't correct. So again, unless that's just because of COVID opening hours at the time or whatever, it wasn't correct. And actually where it was in a really dodgy, in my opinion, dodgy area. And I don't normally get intimidated easily, but it was that like place where you'd see rundown buildings, you'd see a lot of like gentlemen's clubs, and it wasn't a red light district, but it was like, you could tell there was a lot of like that kind of stuff there, which I'm not a prude. It's not that. I literally had some guy that seemed like he was off his face, and he just started shouting at us in Greek as he was walking by, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And I don't think that the immediate area like looked particular, like there were certain patches that I was like, oh, this doesn't look the best, and then you'd hit another patch and you'd be like, oh, okay, maybe it's fine, it's just major city, like that's how it is. But then like I said, that guy shouting at us, and I had heard from someone else that it was not the nicest area to go to, but I was like, okay, fine. Needless to say, I was like, I kind of don't want to attempt to go back. Like, I've gone there, it's closed. The place itself looks really cool. The beer that I've had from them at other bars, really cool. If I were to advise someone to go, I would say check because it looks like it's a cool place to visit. Check that they're actually open, and just take a cab. Like, I wouldn't try walking there unless you're really close to it, because it just I don't know, it didn't feel right to me, and like maybe that's just me being a wimp, I don't know, but I just personally was like, not great. I mean, we had already had things. One thing to be very aware of in some place like Greece as well, and it's not just Greece, and it's not everywhere in Greece, there's lots of places in Europe, pickpockets. You have to be smart. You have to be. My friend got his phone stolen. Rick and I are very good at, zip up things, have things where you my friend didn't even think, and had his phone stolen. And then somebody tried to unzip Rick's pocket at one point on the metro and take something out of his pocket that had our passport in it. Ooh. So that, yeah, he didn't get it because we saw him and we were like, no, actually we didn't see him. Someone else on the train who was really lovely and like tapped us and was like,
yeah,
sort of pointed it out. We were like, oh shit. Yeah, we stopped that from happening, but it was a bit scary. So already having had those encounters, I was sort of like, I just don't want to come back here after I've got shouted at by some crackhead. I just don't want to do it. But it looked like it was really cool and the beer is really good. We went to beer time, which was really good, but it depends on your budget because it's quite a big menu, but some stuff was really expensive. I thought it was fair, but if you're on a lower budget, it might not be as good. Barley Cargo, again, massively extensive. Yeah, massively extensive menu, like pages and pages and pages. Huge bar, very expensive. In my opinion, even that was quite expensive. I mean, it's hard because I can understand some of it to a certain degree, but some of it I was just like, comparatively, when you look at other places around, it's expensive comparative to other places. But if you have unlimited budget, Barley Cargo is where I'd go because it's expensive but extensive. There's Tales of Ale that was hidden down a little bit of a side alleyway, but it had a lot of character and it was really cool. It was quite small, but just filled with stuff and filled with signs and beers everywhere. And it was just this tiny little galley style like bar, and lots of there was outdoor seating. It was really nice, and like I said, it was quite hidden, so it was very quiet, very relaxing, really nice. Another place was called Va Bene. It was really far out of the way. The vibes were good. I wouldn't recommend going to it unless you were staying close enough by to it, because I wouldn't say it warranted the trek out. But if you were nearby to it, it definitely is a place that I would go. Now, the places I would recommend going, even though it is further out, Blame the Sun, which is a brewery, that was their tap room, and Strange Brew, which is around the corner from them, which is their tap room. Those two places, so good. Vibes really great. Beer's really good. Locations themselves are really cool. One of the guys that worked at Va Bene that we saw earlier in that day, he was at Strange Brew, and apparently I found out he's one of the brewers at this gypsy brewery called Midnight Circus Gypsy Brewing, and I bought one of their beers. Really good beer as well. Really friendly person and just really great. So we didn't actually get to, obviously it's a gypsy brewery, so they don't have a location, but I've tried their beer and it is very good. So you will find some of that over there. You won't get to visit the brewery, but they are really good beers. And then the one that we went back to like multiple times was called Tapfield. So good, such a good menu. And it's not even like, all of it's not even up there. I was just like, what do you have for sours? And he was like, hang on, boom, boom, but like all these cans of sours. And I was like, amazing. We went back multiple times. They recommended us really good places to go eat. So friendly, so good at being helpful. They were really helpful, and that went a long way. And then the vibe of the bar itself was really good. We went to Berlin by 5 Drunk Men, which is exactly as you think it is. it's basically it's that style. They had some of the tables had like draft at the table for certain things. We didn't stay at one of those tables because we wanted to sit outside because it was really hot, but it was a very cool place, very punk rock, really cool. And then the last place we went to, which was on the day we were leaving, we happened to walk by this place called Brew Street. They had so many beers. It was literally just outside on the side of the road again. Such a massive menu of absolute bangers. I had one of the best dippers I think I've ever had. That didn't taste like a dipper. Like, just tasted like a sessionable New England IPA. Absolutely gorgeous. That place I could not recommend enough. So like I said, I will put this all somewhere, a guide to Greece. But yeah, it was lots of really, really good places. And I hope this hopefully breaks the notion that Greece doesn't have good craft breweries other than Seven Islands, because there are so many amazing places other than that brewery, which is a good brewery, but there are so many other amazing places to explore. Are there any places that you do want to go that you would like, literally, I know we've probably talked about before, but like on your list, seriously considering visiting?
Places that I want to go, I want to do Bamberg.
Yeah, we talked about this before, because I'm
yeah.
like, I'm team Bamberg as well.
I want to do Bamberg. I haven't thought much about, like, when I went away for work, that was literally the first time I've been on a plane since 2019.
How did that feel? Talk about how that felt.
It was
like,
fine.
Was that good?
Yeah, it was fine.
Was it good to go someplace like new?
Yeah. It's different because it's for work. So you've got a schedule and you've got to get things done, and it's not a holiday.
Yeah.
So it's not the same as like
you have people's itineraries on the line as well.
I've got an itinerary and I'm in charge of people and I'm in charge of getting stuff done. So it's very different going on a work trip than it is going on holiday. So yeah. Good to go. Had to get myself back into like flight mode and weight of bags, what you can take and what you can't, things like that. Like you've got to get yourself back in that notion of what you need to do, because I haven't done that in quite a while.
Did you take any beers back with you?
Yeah, I did bring some back, but they weren't necessarily from Germany. They were from people.
Top tip about packing back. So how do you pack your beers? Me, I will literally put them in a Ziploc bag so that they don't, if they do explode, they don't leak anywhere.
I put mine in a carry bag.
Yeah, either carry bag or Ziploc, something like that, to keep it contained. And then I will, at a minimum, put it in a sock if I can.
So I wrap
then
it in
roll it in a. Oh, so yeah, I will do like maybe a sock if I have one. Yeah. If not, I'll just wrap it in like you said, dirty washings. That way, it's like you're using the space and you're using what's already in the bag. Yeah. And it's padded, it's sealed so it's not going to leak out, and it's padded so it's not going to like bump around and hit stuff when people are chucking your bags.
I saw someone had like fancy luggage that you can like fit beers in. I think that was an American person though.
Interesting.
Yeah, but then of course it's like, because then it's foam lined and there's shapes and stuff. You can't get much else in it.
No, I tend to do like layer of clothing on the bottom and around the sides, so that there's padding on the bottom and sides.
You just want to make sure
it's
padded.
Everything else, and then padding on the top.
That it's not going to move around.
And that you don't have two pieces of glass like next to each other, mushing each other. Yeah. The only other thing that I want to do on my list is go to a beer spa.
Oh, I want to do a beer spa.
Can we go have a girls trip and do a beer spa? You can do them in is it Budapest?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Let's go on a long weekend to Budapest and do a beer spa.
And do you know, actually we were talking about the Czech Republic the other day and Prague.
Oh, maybe it's Prague. I think I'm actually thinking of Prague. I think it's thinking of Prague. Let's do a long weekend.
I've been to Prague, but it was before I liked beer.
Oh, we'll go and we'll do the beer spa. Yeah. Apparently it's really good. You get it for like, I don't know, 60 minutes to an hour and a half or something. And it's all you can drink while you sit in the beer spa as well.
Nice. I want to do that.
Girls' weekend.
Done.
Cool. I think that concludes everything. Yeah. I don't think we need to say anything else.
No. Tori, if people want to tell you about their experiences of beer in other countries, or maybe ask you more questions about your Greek experience, where can they get hold of you?
Yeah, you can definitely come talk to me about Greek. You can definitely come talk to me about Greece or Japan, because I can tell you beer in both spots. Or
Turkey eventually as well.
Or Turkey eventually when I get there. Yeah, you can come talk to me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism, or at Gmail at adventuresinoptimism@gmail.com. And keep an eye out, because I will eventually type this all up, put it in a blog post, and then I will share it on social media, which is linked in my Instagram account. And if you want to reach out to the podcast in a podcast capacity, I will probably pick those up, and that would be a women's brew podcast at gmail.com. Joe, if people want to pick your brain about Munich, where can people find you?
You can come talk to me at my beer school, which is Love Beer Learning on Facebook. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok and Pinterest. It's mostly Instagram, although I've been very quiet lately, but because I've been gallivanting around and I've not had time. That will solve itself eventually. We got new things coming at Love Beer Learning, so make sure you're following.
Yeah, I've been really super quiet as well, and I think really that's just it's been busy.
We've been busy. People,
when it gets cold and we don't want to go out, we're miserable.
You are lucky you're getting podcasts. Like the podcast is ticking along, but the rest of it has had to take.
We're doing this on a night when I'm like, I should be packing. You should be doing something else. We'll just do it. It's fine.
It's fine. We are here for you, dear listeners. I've also got a website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk, or you can get hold of me on email at lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. And don't forget, we are on YouTube as A Woman's Brew, and you can find us on Instagram as A Woman's Brew as well. These beers were delightful. Thank you for bringing them back for me.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope you enjoy the Krampus one.
Yeah,
go finish the rest of my dipper on a weeknight.
Drink some more stout.
Cheers.